Today, I'm going to dig into Jaden Hossler and some of the things that he says without saying anything at all. Check this out. Every once in a while, an artist will give you something a lot more than you were expecting. Jaden did this in two particular cases for me. One is in his introduction to Better Off Dead that he posted on Instagram. He talks about the reboot card. He also talks about saying things you can't say and how uncomfortable people are.
This is literally my fucking boy. He died, and he's back now. He got the reboot card on everything. Tell me you didn't.
No, I did, bro.
Yeah, we know. People are giving us ugly faces right now because we're real about this shit, but it's facts. And I was there with him through like the whole fucking process. So would you say it's better off that you're dead or no?
No.
All right, let's run it. Oh, boom! Better off dead. I know that was kind of like a weird and maybe inappropriate intro, but that's how we do it here. We're authentic as fucks.
Then he also goes into, in that same introduction, how they talk about things in songs that can't be said otherwise.
Travis brought it to me, and he was like, this is like perfect. Everyone's been feeling like this, like maybe I'm just better off dead, you know? And that kind of sounds harsh, but and the way it's delivered in music is perfect, you know? The way we get to talk about real issues and real stuff in music and make it comfortable for people to listen to is like a big part of my journey as an artist. So
this is the messianic secret. These are the things people can't talk about. Then he posts another video that goes through this idea of, going into the wilderness and then, seeing something that you're not supposed to see. Oh my gosh, that's cool. And then all of a sudden, like you're stoned and you're like Jesus and he has his arms out and he says, Jesus Christ.
Jesus Christ.
Look, that's what this means. That's discipleship. You gotta carry your own cross. There are a number of songs that he's written and he's performed. One of the most profound things for me to learn is how musicians tend to tie the backstory of their lyrics to timing and the exact same timing that's used in the Bible. And the biblical authors use this same pattern all throughout the Bible, from Genesis to Revelation. It's stunning to see. I wrote a book about it called Synapse. The cipher also digs into it. The biggest thing for you to understand is that every verse and every chapter number has context. It means something. And musicians know this, and they use the same thing. Maybe not all musicians, probably not all musicians. And whether it's conscious or subconscious, I can't answer that question either. It could be the creative side of, our internal self working through, the microphone or the lyrics. We're all creative in some way, and maybe that's how God manifests, in our actions and causes us to do something that we don't necessarily understand or control. I'm not here to determine that, but what I am here to do is show you how Jaden Hossler has tied a lot of his lyrics and a lot of what he does back to the Bible. On my website, I broke down Angels and Demons, probably one of my favorite songs of his, because it says so much. It talks about dancing on the cop car and then getting locked in the cop car and he can't get out. There's no one in the world that can let him out. It's kind of the idea of discipleship. Once you see Jesus, you're locked in. You're wearing the brand marks of Jesus, and you have to perform and you have to be that kind of person. The idea of being locked in the cop car is like the Apostle Paul. So as soon as the Apostle Paul had his scales of judgment removed from his eyes, as soon as he knew what was going on, then all of a sudden he was a bondservant of Jesus. And then he wore the brand marks of Jesus, according to Galatians 6:17 and 18. And if you look at Jaden Hossler, this kid's got 3 cross tattoos on his right shin. He's got a rosary bead broken on his right thigh. And it reminds me of Jacob wrestling with the angel in the tent. The idea of a tent of meeting is an internal self. That's more like a temporary housing as a temple or a place to meet God. In that particular case, it's like an internal war, an internal battle with oneself. So breaking the rosary beads is the idea of breaking through. And the rosary beads I tie back to Tamar and Judah in Genesis 38 because of the way she took the birthright of Judah and carried it on through generations. That's sort of the backstory. But Jaden, what he's depicting in this song, Angels and Demons, I broke down on my website, and you can read sort of how I put that together. And it's absolutely stunning how much he talks about this trial and tribulation. Another song that I dug into is Pray on my website. And what I did with Pray is I tied that to the biblical backstory, but verse by verse in the Bible and verse by verse in a song. And it's just stunning how he matches that. Not only the pattern, but he matches the timing to the chapter and verse number of the Bible. It's this code that God has weaved all the way through creation. And this same code is used in the periodic table. It's used in subatomic particles, human biology. It's the same code. It's all throughout the Bible, but Jaden's using that in his songs. Not all artists do this, by the way. Not everybody. Many do, but not everybody. And at least I haven't been able to see it in everybody's work. Another song is Freak. So I take that second by second. And he recorded that with his friends Beauty School Dropout. And they also have songs, like Adam and Eve eating the apple, and waking up and realizing something's different. It's really interesting. These guys tend to tell the same story. Jaden's got a really cool song called 1 Minute Left. It's about having 1 minute left to be able to call your parents and your girlfriend next. It really ties deeply into the concept of discipleship. One of the things that most people miss for discipleship is you have to hate your mother, hate your father, hate your siblings, and hate yourself, and only then do you qualify as being a disciple of Jesus. Look, that sounds really painful, but it turns out to be part of the rules. 2 Timothy 2:5 says you have to follow the rules. Matthew 7:1-2 says you're going to be measured the same way as you measure somebody else. So if he's saying in his song what I think he's saying, and that is, I wish I called them and I didn't have the anxiety and I loved them, I put myself out there instead of being silent and staying away, in other words, casting them out, what he's saying is, since he cast them out, since he didn't call, since he didn't reach out, since he didn't answer the call, then by nature, he's casting himself out. Because of that, he wishes he called his parents and called his girlfriend next. This keys into tongues and what tongues mean. Tongues, the quickest way to identify this is when an artist says something that conflicts. And I'll give you a few examples. In this song, his mother and his father are still alive. He's got a great relationship with his mother, for all I can tell. I don't know about his father, but anyway, so Jaden's got a relationship. Well, if that's the case, why does he need 1 minute left? It doesn't make sense. Another song is Elevated Heartbreak. And it's a great song. It's a beautiful song. But he claimed that that's for Cooper, a good friend of his who passed away. The problem is in that song, it doesn't make sense, about forgiveness and, apologies and things like that. That's not something that he would say about Cooper. It just doesn't make sense. Another song, and this one's by Justin Bieber, he talks about being buzzed and sober at the same time. Buzz is the idea of the Nazirite vow. It's the idea of Delilah cutting the hair of Samson, so you're buzzed and you're weakened. And accordingly, you're not high. You're cut off from the vine, so you're not drinking. That's the idea of being buzzed. So you can be buzzed and sober at the same time because it's talking in strange riddles. It's speaking in tongues. Jaden offers a lot of other clues outside of his music. So he's got a couple of TikToks that he uses a soundtrack that talks about wearing Jesus sandals, backing the camel up. That's like John the Baptist in the wilderness. John's unworthy to untie the sandals of Jesus, and he's wearing camel skin. That's kind of the idea. So going backwards is the concept of Ham's brothers walking in backwards to cover Noah's naked body. So that's the idea of the camel, but wearing Jesus sandals and being unworthy to untie them is the concept of discipleship. You have to go through life to be able to untie Jesus sandals. That's it. That's the point. He's got other cases where he uses that red boot. And he had a picture of the red boot hanging out the window in front of the 7-Eleven. And the meaning of the numbers 7 and 11 are almost completion. It's not quite there, but it is. It's together they can stand up. And having the dude in the red boot is the idea of somebody stuck in hell. They're left behind. It goes back to John 21. And that's the end of his song Angels and Demons, where he's leaving himself behind. And that's specifically John 21 verses 21 and 22. It's the idea of that person, that other half, being left behind. It's a division of self. It's actually strange, but it's the story that's being told. Overall, probably the greatest message that Jaden delivers, aside from the microphone, are his tattoos. Those tattoos, he's got crosses all over. His first tattoo is Mark 8:36. The idea of Mark 8:36 is not giving up your soul in pursuit of the world. In other words, staying away. That's the concept of discipleship. It's praying in secret, according to the Sermon on the Mount. It's not being clear. It's not blasting the trumpet. Instead, you are hidden, but you're in plain sight. You're on a lampstand. You're behind a microphone on a stage. that you're being silent. You're speaking in riddles, like Psalm 49:4. You're speaking in riddles. So this is my pursuit to answer the call of Psalm 43:1, which is giving the testimony of Psalm 43:1 for those stuck behind a microphone propounding riddles. You have done a magnificent job. You've done an amazing job. You, Jaden, you've done an awesome job. Anybody else who's going through this same thing, you've done an awesome job. Let your light shine. It's time. It's time. It's over. Jaden was on tour earlier this year, and he performed "Yellow" by Coldplay, and that song is utterly profound. It lines up with the Bible verses. The timing does, like minute 3:12 to 16, bleeds out. That's the idea of bleeding out on the cross. He jumped across. He swam across. It's like John 21, where Simon Peter swims across. Swim across for you. Drew a line in the sand for you. He said something else really profound too. He said he drew a line in the sand and he took his turn. Jaden said the same thing in Angels and Demons when he said he was tired of the nonsense and he jumped into the mosh pit. It was a choice. Both these guys sing sort of the same concept. It was by choice, and it's a big deal. These are hidden messages sort of inside the music, and I can't miss it, especially tied to the timing, tied to the rest of the balance of what these guys sing about, the tattoos, the concept of the different images that are posted online. It all ties together. I encourage you to check out the video that I put together outlining what Jaden talks about in some of his other songs. Also, check out the website if you want to read more and see how this really works from a technical perspective and really granular into Bible verses. Check out my book, Synapse. Also, check out Cypher. The Cypher really digs into the patterns and how things work, but Synapse digs into musicians, a bunch of different musicians, lines up all sorts of songs and Bible verses, a whole spreadsheet. In the end, I hope this resonates with you. I hope that you know that God loves you. I love you. So many people do. Whether you're Jaden watching this, which I doubt he'll ever see, or somebody else that is impacted by the same sort of burden, the same sort of curse. God's ready for his fading embers to come home. God's ready to collect those who were scattered, cut off, and missing from his church.